All right, so my wife and I started a food kind of Instagram page about 5-6 years ago called Devour Power.
Devour Power.
Devour Power.
Yep, I'm aware of it. Phil Toronto from Toronto Tartar is very excited. D. Simone's excited.
Yeah,
you
so
got some fans here, brother.
What's up, guys? All right, so I mean, it's grown to over like 500,000 followers now. About 2 years ago, we started a marketing and media company.
Understood.
I met Gary Vee when he only had 1 million followers.
Go ahead.
You're getting there.
All right. So my question is, in today's market, having a strong social media presence with engaging content is definitely a leading factor in being successful as a restaurant. With that being said, having traditional PR, like getting an Eater and Grub Street, etc., is important as well. Where do you think the future of restaurant marketing is heading? And in the coming years, will restaurants steer more of their marketing budget towards social media as opposed to the high-priced PR agencies that don't really focus on social media?
So I'm gonna jump in first because I'm curious to see where Danny takes it, where this framework. So it was funny as you were talking, having a social media presence, a successful one, as a leading indicator. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that when I look at as of today, and it could change over time, but when I look today at a lot of the top restaurants, Danny's firm's investment arm is a very large investor in Resi. He's an icon in technology and restaurants as being an early supporter and board member of Open Table. With Resi, starting a couple years ago with Ben, I've looked heavier at the restaurant marketing world than I would have naturally. I do not believe that a lot of the top restaurants in this country have very strong social media presence. I think if you're going from zero and trying to establish something today, starting today, it's a really nice thing to have an Instagram presence that matters and some other things. But I think it's very interesting. And this is a huge parallel to the wine world. I think the greatest thing that has ever happened to the wine world is that Robert Parker and Wine Spectator, two individuals with Marvin Shankin and two entities, Wine Advocate and Wine Spectator, that I have enormous respect for and thought did a lot of good for the wine business in the 80s and 90s in America when it was needed. I think the best thing that has happened to the wine world over the last decade is things that Wine Library TV started, which was technology would create a more wide point of view where one or two people couldn't make and break a winery. I would tell you that what you're doing, what a lot of great startups are doing in the marketplace, what social media is doing in the marketplace, I think has been a great thing. Does the New York Times review still matter? Of course it does. Does it matter the way it did 13 years ago? I do not believe it does, given all the different variables that I see in the marketplace. And I would tell you, and this is a very personal thing for me, I think people are very confused around the fact that I think that what scares me when you frame it that way is that I'm always scared that marketing, AKA sizzle, AKA marketing, if you're in the restaurant business and I did your marketing for you, I would do it better than anybody. I really genuinely believe that. If I was hired to do the marketing for your restaurant tomorrow, and it's what I did full time, it would be the most successfully marketed restaurant in America. If your service and your food sucked shit, all that would happen is I would speed up the process of people knowing we suck and we would lose. And so, for me, a restaurant business, or me as a person, the reason I think I run a successful company is not because I'm a personality or good at marketing. It's what happens next after you get people into the funnel. And so, look, to answer your question directly, I think a traditional PR company is basically out of business in 2018. They just don't realize it yet. You cannot be in the business of hitting up editors and networks to get your guest on or awareness in a world where we can all go direct to consumer at scale. So to answer directly, traditional PR companies that charge $5,000, $3,000, $10,000 a month to a human or to a restaurant and think getting articles on websites or getting an appearance on a morning talk show, that game is over. And over the next decade, they will be transformed into a very different service. But I also think you need to be very careful if I see a restaurant have 1.3 million followers on Instagram and good engagement even, I don't default into thinking they have a good restaurant business. I think they have a better potential for a great restaurant business, but it's gonna really matter how that steak is delivering on that social media sizzle.
What
Danny,
he said.
You agree?
I couldn't agree more. In fact, we've made that same shift in our company. We used to have, as recently as probably 5 years ago, 80% of our internal spend, and we have an internal team that is second to none.
Yep.
But 80% of it was on public relations.
Yep.
Today, 80% of it's on social media.
Yep.
How do we, and marketing.
Yep.
Not just social media, but how do we tell our story
direct,
as opposed to asking other people to tell it for us?
I very personally, one selfish objective I have here is to somehow get you to start a podcast, like a meaningful one. Like it would dominate. You would have a top 100 your podcast, and you would only have to do it once.
Funny you should say that. I have a meeting right after this because my own team is begging for the same thing. But my answer, here's my answer. For 10 years before I wrote Setting the Table,
yes,
I was hearing, you got to write a book, you got to write a book. And I said, we already have cookbooks now. No, we don't want a recipe that leads to food. We want a recipe for how you guys do business. What do people need to hear in a podcast that doesn't already exist, Gary?
I'll explain. So we're going to go reenact our Twitter moment, you and I.
Okay, I'm
in
there.
A podcast form. I think much like you've created the framework for passing the ball and being you don't have to do all the things, a podcast around your points of view / your organization's points of view to the industry is remarkably impactful, not only to the industry, but to industries outside of your industry. I think the thing that's super interesting to me when I wrote The Thank You Economy was like somebody who owns a construction company would be like, the 2 formative books in my life. And it's funny with books, people read them in all out of order style, it doesn't matter when they're printed. Sometimes when I get asked, they're like, another one, I'm like, I don't know, Danny's book. Like to me, when they want to double down on that thesis, my belief is that podcasts are enormously important culturally. People, you have to understand, you have to create things in a way that people want to consume them. There are millions of people that you could be impacting professionally and personally who only consume information in podcast form. Who aren't going to pick
up Setting the Table. Right.
And what I love is that it doesn't have to require a lot of your time. What you've done extremely well and is exactly the telltale sign of a true leader and somebody who's a true citizen is you've not made this just about yourself. And you're even incapable over the last 10 years, even everything is we, it's so ingrained into you that the we, the team, that the fact that you can have a daily podcast that can be hosted by a different team member every day of the week. And I think you think of the world the way I do, which is I don't mean the head of business relations or the head of PR. I mean somebody who's back office, somebody who's front of one of the restaurants, somebody who's been at Shake Shack for 2 weeks in DC. I think if you really thoughtfully thought of a framework, you could create a very impactful piece of media that would disproportionately help people and help whatever objectives you had, whether that's business or culturally or whatever it may be.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Brother, thanks for the call. Anything else you want to, while we're pontificating here and being ideological?
I didn't know I was being invited in for a therapy session, but this is really helpful. Thanks.
What are you looking to do? Are you looking at, the way you asked the question, are you trying to build more ammo to be able to get clients in that world, and you want to be a service provider for restaurants and convince them properly, in my opinion, that them spending $6,000 a month with you is a hell of a lot better than the $6,000 a month they're spending elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. The goal is to grow Devour Power as big as it could possibly be as an influencer with me and my wife, and then also have the media marketing company as well, helping out restaurants, because that's what we love to do.
I love it, man. Well, good luck. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Danny, I'm going to Martina tonight, so I'm pretty pumped about it.
That's awesome. And
they better deliver.
Which is the name of your reservation, just so we can snag it?
He wants your last name, bro.
Oh, Remy. R-E-M-M-E-Y.
All right,
you
we got
it. Thanks, brother. That's just how I ask. Like, give me your fucking last name. That's how I do it, Danny. All right, let's get to the next one.